Hello and welcome to the Back Nine Report, where Fred Altvater and I get together and check in on the world of golf to bring you the latest news, insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, previews. Hey, we cover anything and everything golf. In other words, if it happened in golf, we have it for you. And this edition is special because there's two things that are happening. 8 years ago, Fred and I started to do the Back Nine Report on Masters Week. And this is Masters Week. So we have to go all out. We're going to do the massive wall to wall preview of the Masters. And of course, it's special because we have to bring in the historian, the guru, the golf guru, the European golf guru, Kieran Clark, who's always with us when we're doing this massive previews. And as you all know, hey, all three of us are award-winning previews. So this is what you want to see. Okay, this is we're gonna get you every storyline. There's not gonna be any stone unturned. So anyway, let me stop talking because we gotta bring in Kieran Clark. He's very far away. He's in Scotland. Kieran, first time Tuesday you're doing the show with us.
Well, and apparently so, which is a novelty for me. Great to see. And yeah, it's Masters Week again. Who could believe that? They come around fast every year, it seems like, the Masters. But obviously, it's always a memorable week for everybody in golf. And this year, I think we're coming into one where obviously the November Masters that we had was good for what it was, delivered a great champion and a great story. But I think this feels more like a Masters. We're back in the spring. We have the spring conditions. The golf course is firm and fast, and it's playing more like a conventional Masters tournament. We have spectators back on the golf course, not in massive numbers, but some semblance of an atmosphere, which we certainly missed back in November. No grandstands, though, and no par-free contests. So not quite normality, but something a little bit closer to it. Maybe more like a old-fashioned type feel to this major, where you have fans there, but not in grandstands. But 1940s, 1930s, that sort of traditional feel of fans around the greens, just there in person. It'll certainly add a lot to it. So I think we're going to have a more conventional Masters this week, Carlos, and I can't wait to delve into it with you and Fred tonight.
Can't wait for it. Fred, seems like it was just like 6 months ago that we were talking about the Masters. How are you, Fred?
I'm fantastic. And, it's always great to get excited when Masters is here. It kind of signals the beginning of spring up here in the northern clime. I was able to actually get out and play 9 holes up in Cadillac, Michigan over the weekend on Saturday. I'm back in Toledo today. The temperature was about 68 here today. It was absolutely gorgeous. So everybody's starting to think about golf and getting their game in shape. And we got the Masters. So what could beat that? Excited to talk about the Masters tonight with you and Kieran. Let's go.
There's nothing better. It's the tradition like no other, right? I'm sorry to be copying that.
Do we have to send Jim Nance a check now because you said that?
Jim, I'll talk to you later. But anyway, it's when we talk about Masters, is tradition because that's what it is. It's a lot of history. A lot of things have happened. A lot of nuances that we can talk about. So I'm going to start with you, Fred. Tell me, what is your most fond memory? What sticks into your mind about the history also of the Masters?
Well, Larry Mize chipping in to beat Greg Norman, of course. That sticks out. Anything Jack Nicklaus did from 75, all the way up through. But when he won in 86, rolling in that putt, holding that putter up, right? I can still see it today. I've seen it a million times on a clip, but Jack Nicklaus winning in 1986, that's a pretty easy answer. And it's such a great place for history. The things that stick with me in that, of course, the fact that Hogan, Snead, and did so well there in the 40s. And then you got Palmer, Nicklaus, and Player winning almost every one in the 60s. So it really seems to always bring the cream seems to come to the top. It always brings out the best players for the Masters. That's the thing that sticks with me about Augusta National Masters every year, Carlos.
How about you, Kieran? Coming from Europe, Scotland specific, which is the home of golf. talking about the
You're
Masters.
not allowed to talk about Seve. You can't. Nothing Seve. No.
Talk about Savvy. Come on, don't worry about it. Just tell us, what is that memory that you get there from the Masters? It's incredible. It's very important to see because you have that other side of the pond, like we call it, right? So how about it? What's your fondest memory, and what tradition do you remember most?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Masters, much like what Fred described, I mean, it is the signal of spring, the signal of the golf season. We're coming out of winter here in the UK as well. And the Masters, it brings those incredible images to you on TV at nighttime over here. So it does really entice you to get back out on the golf course and play. So it's always had that kind of quintessential spring feel. It resonates with people very deeply, the Masters in the UK. And of course, all the great champions from this part of the world, from Nick Faldo to Ian Woosnam, and of course, Sandy Lyle back in 1988. I have to say that, the flag of Scotland flying above Augusta National.
Got to get Sandy in there.
You got to get Sandy in there. Sandy's actually playing in his 40th Masters tournament this week. He is the first European golfer to ever play in that many Masters. So that's a little rare bit of history for him. He'll always be, he'll never stop playing. There could be a nuclear war. It'll just be Sandy left playing in a Masters. That's always going to be the case. He loves that lifetime exemption, and quite rightly so. But no, in terms of great memories, Carlos, it's very hard to pick out one because to me, it's a continuing thing, and the Masters always delivers something memorable. And I think so much of that is to do with the golf course, how volatile it can be. We all remember the holes, we know what they look like. We remember the great moments and the disastrous moments as well, the good and the bad. The golf course is on that really fine line of drama, greatness, tragedy. And for me, one particular tournament that sticks out in my head, and I look back sort of on the milestone in the past, and 10 years ago, we remember Rory McIlroy had the 4-shot lead, and of course he squandered that horrendously around Amen Corner, and opened door for everybody to come in there, and there was so many guys in contention, birdies everywhere, and of course it was Charles Schwartzel who came through and birdied the last 4 holes to win the tournament. So to me, while that wasn't necessarily the most memorable winner or the most memorable story, it had everything in my mind that encapsulates the Masters through time, which is the brilliance, the birdies, the excitement, the drama, the packed, stacked up leaderboard, but also the tragedy it's been there. And Rory was, that particular year, that was his tragic tale. And as Fred touched on, I've seen so many before in the past, Greg Norman, Tom Weiskopf, Johnny Miller, all these guys, great players. There's a lot of ghosts to Augusta National. And to me, the 2011 Masters of the most recent times was the one that I think encapsulated what the tournament kind of represents and delivers more often than not, year in, year out.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some ghosts, right? Because Jordan Spieth also had his. I mean, that who cannot remember that? But as the Masters is like the tournament of shots, and legends are made on. So, I mean, Sandy Lyle's bunkers brilliance in '88. Yep. That was amazing shot. Then you got the year before, it was Larry Mice, a miracle ship that you can say, right? In '86, watching. Jack Nicklaus winning. I still the most amazing shot that I still have in my mind is Bubba Watson's wild hook in 2012.
Yeah, good one.
I mean, that was unbelievable. It was like he's done, and all of a sudden he puts it on the green. That hook was amazing. Tiger's twice, I would say in 2005, he had that magical touch that it was like he could do anything. And then winning 3 years ago, just watching that magic come back and the way that he was able to hold the field, it was amazing. So the Masters, full of history. Every year we see something new, and I'm sure with all the things and all the great form that players are showing this year, there's going to be a lot that we're going to be talking about. And now let's talk about the main storylines. And the first one, I was talking about Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods is not here. It's documented already, the tragic accident that he had. We don't know yet. His career is on hold right now. We don't know what's going to happen with him, but that's the big name, the biggest name that is not here this year. So Kieran, how about Tiger Woods not being here in the Masters this year?
It's obviously a real miss, and we've mentioned there obviously so many iconic moments in the past, and you mentioned some of them there, Carlos, that involve Tiger Woods. And when you think of the Masters and the great moments and the great tournaments in the past, Tiger's right at the top of the list. 20 years ago, the Tiger Slam, he wins 4 majors in a row, arguably the greatest accomplishment in golf history. Probably is. Might never be done again. Probably won't. And you mentioned the win in 2019. That's obviously a stratospheric tale. And I think you look back at Tiger's legacy in the Masters and his history, you could argue that 3 of his victories are among the best of all time. 1997 for the dominance, 2001 for the achievement, and then 2019 for the most incredible comeback. So Tiger's, such an iconic figure, and his stage at the Masters is meshed so well together, and he means so much to our view of the Masters as a tournament. His image is so much a prominent part of it. And you mentioned the shot in 2005, Carlos, that I think it's kind of the Sarazen's albatross for the YouTube generation. It's the most viewed golf shot of all time. Of course, he did bogey the next 2 holes after that and fall into the playoff, but we forget that minor detail after the drama of the chip in. But no, Tiger's a huge loss, and we hope one day he can come back and potentially play again. Obviously, that's fingers crossed that he gets back to health and full fitness, but that's obviously the most important thing. Tiger's such a huge figure in sport, a transcendent figure in golf, and this stage is the one that he's most closely affiliated with. When you think of Tiger Woods, you think of those moments I've just described. So him not being there this year is obviously a huge loss to everybody in the game, and obviously we hope maybe next year or the years to come, we can get him back and potentially playing to some level again, but we'll have to wait and see about that.
Fred, Tiger proofing became alive here in the Masters, Augusta National. Not having that icon, what does it mean this year?
Well, as we've documented many times, Tiger is, of course, the most watched. If he's playing, everybody's watching to see what's going on. And Kieran said it perfectly. From 1997, what he shoot, 42 on that first 9 holes and comes back and wins by 7 shots or something like that. I mean, that was his announcement to the world that I'm something pretty special, and I'm gonna make you watch me whether you want to or not, because you just never know what I'm gonna do. So and yeah, all the things that he's done there through the years, like Kieran documented, the wins and coming back and winning it one more time. And that's just phenomenal. It's unbelievable. We never figured we'd hardly ever see him win like that again. So it's a big loss. It really is. But we've got some other guys popping up. Jordan Spieth's a popular guy. Maybe Tiger won't be missed that much. So maybe Jordan's a guy to carry us through.
And speaking about Jordan Spieth, I mean, he stepped into the winner's circle this past weekend for the first time in almost 4 years, as his game has finally gotten back into form this season. I mean, it was a when and not if he was going to win back the way that he has been playing recently. I mean, he's heading into the Masters now, given what he's been able to accomplish in Augusta National over the years. But coming off a win, that hype is now at an all-time high. There was a lot of people already talking about him peaking at the right time. And besides winning the green jacket in 2015, I mean, he has other top 3 finishes, 3 top 3 finishes. And even when he hasn't been in top form, he has done well here. So, Fred, what does it mean also now that Jordan Spieth as well? And I was having this conversation earlier today. It's like, he's the guy that has that roar from the crowd. He's that guy that if somebody like Tiger can bring the people in, is him. He's genuinely brings in the fans into his game.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you've been excited to watch his comeback. And I went back today and looked at some stuff from last fall up through January. He played in 7 events, missed 4 cuts. His highest finish was a T38. Was not playing very good. He'd fallen clear down to 179 in the FedEx Cup. He'd fallen clear out of the top 50 of the world golf ranking. He was like nowhere to be seen. He was doing a nosedive. Since February 1, he's played in 7 events. He's had a win, 1/3 and 2/4, plus another 9. So he's had 4 top 10s, including the win last week, in his last 7 starts with no missed cuts. made over $3 million, moved back up to number 38th in the world. He's now number 7 in the FedEx Cup. He's number 13 now in the Ryder Cup race, which he was out of sight in that. So he's made a huge move over the last February, March, April, over the last 3 months. So, or actually 2.5 months. And he looked very confident. He struggled a little bit on the front 9 with that driver, but by the back 9, he kind of had it straightened out. He was hitting some really good shots. If he can take that kind of confidence into Augusta, a place where he's won, he bracketed his wins with 2 runners up, plus he's had a 3rd in there, and he's only played in the Masters 7 times. This will only be his 8th start. So he's had excellent success there. He loves the golf course. It fits his game. It fits his eye, and the fans love him. What could you ask for?
Kieran, he's right now ranking 28th in strokes gained total this year. He was 99th last year. It tells you how big his leap is coming. His short game has always been there. He'll need it definitely to be there this week to contend. But having him back, what does it mean to you to have Jordan Spieth peaking at the right time again at the Masters?
I've always found Spieth an incredibly compelling golfer to watch. I think he's someone who he almost invites you into his round because he's so he speaks so much in the golf course. He's so demonstrative. Great mannerisms, and there's always that element of you don't know what's going to happen next. He can hit some shots that I would hit on the golf course, and then a minute later he hits one of the best shots you've ever seen. There's a real excitement about him. There's a real, almost a romantic feel about Spieth. And in an age where so many golfers now are very much robotic and scientific, Spieth feels to me like a throwback golfer to the kind of the glory days of the 70s and 80s. He's much more like a Bren Crenshaw type player where anything can happen, and he thrives in the right environment, and Augusta is obviously his stage. And he would have been among the favourites coming into this week, considering his good form that he's shown in the Florida swing and in California. But now he's got a win, and that's a huge thing psychologically for him. And I think that makes him now before that win, he was probably a potential contender. Now he's a potential winner at the Masters this week. And it's a rare thing to win the week before and win at Augusta. Phil Mickelson did it in 2006. Sandy Lyle did it back in 1988, but it hasn't happened too often. So Spieth has a great history here, and that counts for a lot. And you mentioned his strokes gained stats, Carlos, and you can delve into that further and look at his iron play, which has always been a strength of Spieth's game. And his iron play has been superb, particularly in the past 2 months or so. And that's hugely important around Augusta National, particularly this week when the golf course is going to play a little bit firmer, a little bit faster. The greens are a bit firmer. It's going to be even harder to unlock those greens and access those pins. And Spieth's iron play is going to go a long way. So if he keeps the ball in play off the tee, iron plays on game, and obviously he holds his putts, and Spieth's, he's going to play well round here, and he's certainly among the favourites to win. And
you mentioned something funny, because you mentioned about him being this person that you like to see. He brings you into his game. If you watch the Valero Texas Open, when he was in the 18th green going for his second shot, he's talking to Michael Greller about what club he's going to use, and Michael Greller is telling him about the 5-wood or going with the 9-wood, 9-iron, and he says all of a sudden he says, no, this is the club where it's 8-iron all day, and he got the right club. He just hit it wrong.
Yeah.
But did you see the tweet from? Did you see the tweet or the Facebook post from Jack Nicklaus today? Jack says, I was jumping off the couch, yelling at the television, take the 8-iron, don't hit the wood, put the wood back. Jack Nicklaus was doing that.
He apparently heard him, because all of a sudden he changed everything that Michael Greller was telling him, and they were talking about it. All of a sudden he picks up the 8-iron. He goes, nice 8-iron all day. Unfortunately, he hit it wrong, but hey, it worked for him. But that's the type of player you like to see, and that interaction was really nice. Now let's talk about this, Kieran, DJ. This
Mhm.
April, August is not going to be anything like the November edition. Okay, so DJ, he isn't going to go out there and post another tournament record 20 under this week like we saw him do a few months ago. Doesn't mean that he can't or won't go out and repeat. Only Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Nick Faldo have won green jackets back to back. Uh, he can join them definitely. I mean, he has the best. He's the best player right now in golf. His worst finish in last five Masters appearances is a T10. That was 2018. So DJ going for back-to-back Masters and majors at the same time. How about that?
I think it's very possible. And as you say, it's very rare an exalted company who have successfully defended and gone back to back at Augusta. But Dustin Johnson is an extraordinary talent, absolutely brilliant player who is capable of absolutely anything on his day. And I think he will play well here this week. I think he will be in that contention. And I think if you finish ahead of Dustin Johnson, you might well win the Masters. I think he's going to be right up there. History would suggest that it's not likely to happen, but if he was to win this week, and win his third major, two Masters back to back, then it really does bring Dustin Johnson into that conversation of being the defining player of his generation. I still think Rory McIlroy is that guy at the moment of players who were born in the 1980s. Narrowly, Koepka was born in the 90s, but DJ's still there, mid 80s, his birth, and I think if he wins this week, then suddenly it becomes a case of, maybe Dustin Johnson is actually the player of his era. And this would go a long way to doing that. And of course, having this quick turnaround of another Masters, and then obviously the majors coming up in the next few months, then there's a potential scenario where if he was to play really well, he could pick up one or two more majors in a relatively quick succession. And then suddenly we are talking about Dustin Johnson as being an all-time great. So I think he will enjoy his week as defending champion. He'll enjoy the champions dinner. He'll enjoy all that stuff that goes around it. But I think Dustin's somebody who doesn't get overawed by very much. And I think he will take that in his stride. And once Thursday comes round, he will be there and ready to go. As you say, Carlos, the conditions are very different in April compared to November. So I don't think 20 under par is going to be on the cards this week. But there's no reason why Dustin Johnson can't be at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday. I think the guy that beats DJ this week might very well be the Masters champion.
How about that, Fred?
Yeah, DJ's at the top of his game. He's number one in the world. He's been winning everything that means anything of late. So he took, he was going to play in the Valero Texas Open, decided to change his mind and stay home and rest. So probably went to Augusta, maybe played a round or two in there last week. So yeah, I like him a lot. I don't, he's not going to get caught up in the emotion or anything. It's just one more event for him. He's going to do his thing. He's got all those great memories from what he did in November. So yeah, why not? I if anybody could repeat, it could very well be Dustin Johnson. And, if he could pick up a couple of majors here this year to add with what he did last year, that certainly would elevate him, like Kieran was saying. But remember, Dustin Johnson gave one U.S. Open away by shooting 80-something on Sunday. And he had that unfortunate entrance with a bunker, not a bunker, at Whistling Straits for a PGA. He could easily have two more majors already. We could be talking about him as one of the greatest players of this era. And if he could pick up a couple majors, maybe 3 or 4 over the next 3 or 4 years, that's exactly what he's going to be.
He's already one of the best players. I mean, if you count all that, he's definitely one of the best players ever. Definitely, he has the ability, he's athletic, he has the game, and he has the affordability to do those things. Now, another player that we have to talk about, and we may give the edge maybe to Jordan Spieth as maybe hotter than him right now, but you cannot overlook JT this week. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, he's just less than a month removed from putting on a masterclass of a weekend on road to winning the Players, and has arguably been the best ball striker on the planet since the start of the year. And on top of all that, this is JT's sixth Masters. And I was reading Kyle Porter at CBS Sports pointing out that out of the 53 Masters champions, the average champion wins his first green jacket in his sixth start at Augusta National. So it's safe to say that he has enjoyed himself here and could very well be up for the win. We will know. I mean, he has gone T39, T22, T17, T12, and finished solo fourth during November's Masters. Again, different conditions. But Fred, how about JT and the storyline here?
Yeah, I want to see JT and Jordan paired on the last grouping on Sunday. I want to see that. That would be fantastic. Maybe with Rory in the group just ahead of him. That would kind of top it off. But yeah, Justin Thomas is obviously, he had that little rough patch in there. We had the death of his grandfather. He had the the slur that he said that got him in hot water for a little bit. But he is one of the best players right now for sure. I think number 2 in the world right now, right behind Dustin. So without question, and he's been in contention at the Masters before. So this could be his year. I couldn't bet against that at all. But I don't know. You guys keep talking firm and fast, and I don't know if you've looked at the weather report, but they're calling for rain every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So by Saturday, it could be pretty sloppy. And, these guys that like Dustin and Justin Thomas, Rory, they can hit a little bit farther, might be to their advantage. And then they could stick it into these greens a little bit better. They might not be as firm. So length might be an issue. Justin Thomas certainly has that. He's got to be one of the favorites this week.
What you think, Kieran?
Oh, he's definitely up there as a favorite. He has the form, he has the confidence from the Players' Championship, which to me, it's not getting into is a Players a major or not. But that was the first event in this pandemic world that to me felt like a championship. The majors we had last year, they're great for what they were, but they were dead. There was nobody there. They were quiet. It didn't feel like a big tournament, but the players had the fans there. It had that atmosphere, had that edge. It felt like a really proper sports event. And I think the pressure was more intense because of that. Just having those eyeballs on you on the golf course. And Justin put together that fantastic weekend, obviously, to win. I think he is going in the right direction. He's had that, as you say, Carlos, a few years of kind of learning Augusta National, improving year by year. He finished fourth back in November. He's a fantastic iron player, which is always key around Augusta. I'll keep repeating that, and it always is. And I think he has the game to win here, and he now has the experience to win here as well. So I think he is absolutely a potential winner. And I say the battle with Justin and Dustin for that world number 1 spot could be very compelling as we build into the rest of this year. But if Justin Thomas was to get a Masters on the back of winning the Players' Championship, then it's going to be a big conversation as to who actually is the best player in the world, because if you win those 2 titles in such a quick succession, then you're in that conversation to be the best player in the world. So I think Justin Thomas has a great chance of winning here this week.
He's waiting for that. And I agree with Fred, and I would love to see JT and Jordan in the final group. If that happens, the firemen better be there, because the fireworks are going to be amazing. I mean, the energy that these 2 guys bring into the golf course is amazing. And watching them go at it, especially knowing they're friends, oh man, I cannot imagine how much it's going to be the trash talking there. So anyway, one of the intriguing storylines is Rory McIlroy. Kieran, maybe now, absolutely nobody predicting him to have a chance of winning his first green jacket. Maybe this will be the year they finally do it. I mean, his results don't necessarily show it lately. He has managed 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts. He has been a little bit struggling as of late. It's been documented. He says, I was chasing more distance, tinkering with the swing. He's been fighting the big miss in the major way. We saw this at the Players when he shot that opening 79. He recently began working with Pete Cowan to get his swing back in order. And Fred mentioned, if he would listen to what Pete Cowan is saying, he can actually maybe do what he needs to do. Maybe the duel has found something, or maybe they're still tinkering. McIlroy still doesn't even see the weekend. We don't know. But nevertheless, Kieran, I think this is one of the most intriguing storylines this week, and will continue to be every single time that he tees it up at Augusta National if he doesn't win a green jacket.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's a very interesting figure this week because in the last few years, Rory's come to the Masters as one of the big favourites. And certainly, if the Masters had happened last April when it was scheduled, he would have been the world number one and the favourite to win. Obviously, the pandemic has affected his game. He hasn't been quite the same, had some technical issues there. But he's one of these players who he is so gifted, so capable that if he finds a key in his swing, and Pete Cowan's the ultimate locksmith, he will find the key if he has to. And he could find something to put together a very strong week. And I think Rory will play well this week. But the question is, can he remove that one bad round that he repeatedly has at Augusta that prevents him from winning? In November, it was a first round 75, but he came back from that and shot 3 rounds in the 60s to finish in the top 10. And I think if you're a betting person, then I think that probably would be the likely outcome this week, where I think Rory will have an encouraging week. I think he will play well. I think he'll finish in the top 10 at some point. It might be one of those backdoor ones he does on the Sunday, comes through at the end and just sneaks in there and picks up a nice check but doesn't really contend. But if it gets off to a good start, then you never know. But the question is, has he removed the bad shots from his game, which have been there in the past year? We all know how good he's going to be. He's going to play well at some point. He's too good not to. He'll make lots of birdies around there. But has he got that destructive shot out of his game that he's had in the past 6 months or so? And if he has got that out of his game, then he's a potential winner. If it's still there, then I think he will play solidly and finish well, but not contend. But I do think he's a wild card figure, Carlos, and you kind of touched on it there, where he's always going to be this story in terms of the career Grand Slam. And maybe this week, where no one's really talking about him as being a favourite, maybe he'll sneak in there under the radar and might just surprise us. Look, in terms of, I always root for the stories, and that would be just as good as it gets. And I'd love to see it happen. Don't think it will, but I think he will leave Augusta feeling better about himself than what he has done recently.
Also, Fred, the mental aspect is one that we cannot overlook on him. He's still searching for that major way to win again, to come back and be on top of the world like he was. All the tinkering that he's done, but still he has to have in the back of his mind the one that he let go. So how about Rory McIlroy?
Yeah, I think Rory is pretty mentally tough. I'm not really concerned about his mental state, or he doesn't really get intimidated by a golf course, or even that situation that happened to him back in 2011 where he hooked it over there in the cabins. He doesn't probably even think about that much anymore. Maybe when he's standing on the tee, he might give a little laugh or something. But I think his issue right now is with his swing mechanics. And he had it. He had it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. He had it. So I think Cowan can get him back to that. I really do. He was, we had talked for a couple of years before that he needed to get to be hitting a little bit of a cut. Well, he wasn't really hitting a cut, but he got to hitting it fairly straight. And that will work just as well. He wasn't playing that big high hook that he fell so much in love with. So now, that being said, as we all know, for a right-hander, Augusta National loves big high hooks, big high draws. So he can play that most of the time and get away with it. The only problem with that is once in a while, a big high draw turns into a snap hook, and that's no good. So my point is that I really think Cowan, with a couple little things, can get Rory back to where he was or close enough that he could be the real story this week. I really don't see him winning, but I think, like I will agree with Kieran, I could see him top 10, maybe up around between 5th and 10th someplace, being a factor, being in the mix. But I just think there's too many good guys right now that are playing well ahead of him, like Justin Thomas, like Jordan Spieth, like Dustin Johnson, maybe a couple other names in there. But it's a crowded field at the top right now, and if Rory gets really on his game, it's going to be tough for him to crack through that.
All right. So another storyline is about Brooks Koepka. It was unclear whether or not he would be teeing it up this week after withdrawing from the Players back in March due to a right knee injury. He later revealed that he suffered a right kneecap dislocation. Ouch, I know what that is. Okay, let's keep going with the show. And the ligament damage and had a procedure done to repair the damage. And it still hurts just to think about. All questions about him playing this week were answered on Sunday when he practiced at Augusta and played 4 holes with Victor Hovland, just 19 days after undergoing surgery. What are you, a freak? How can you do that? Anyway, well, everyone's eyes will be on Koepka's knees. We have to remember this. I mean, we cannot forget that he came from behind to win the Waste Management Phoenix Open back in February, finished T2 at the WGC event at Concession the week prior to revealing the knee injury. Koepka finished T7 in the Masters in November, T2, if you remember, the year before, prior to a disastrous double bogey at the par 3 12. So, Kieran, how about Brooks Koepka, his knee? Testing it, is he right? I mean, if there's somebody that definitely can win here and has the right mindset and ability to do it, it's Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brooks Koepka wouldn't be here if he didn't think he could win this week, and he said that himself. And I think he is the wild card figure this week. I think he's a very dangerous player in the field. If I was one of the favourites, I'd be looking at Brooks Koepka on that leaderboard. There's that phrase that we hear, certainly in the UK, where beware of the injured golfer. And, I don't think anyone expected him to play when he had the knee surgery or when it was announced about 3 weeks ago, as you said, Carlos. But he was back in form just before that. He was back to his best. He's winning again. He was contending. And we all know he's a big game player. He loves these majors. He loves these stages. This is what motivates him. And this is what he's good at. And if he brings the form that he showed in Phoenix or at the WGC at the Concession in Florida, then he can absolutely win this week. And I think Koepka's one of those guys where if it's not going to be Dustin Johnson or Justin Thomas or one of those big favourites, I think Koepka's someone who could really come through the pack at the weekend and potentially shock one of them. He's one of those players who we all know he's not afraid of winning a major championship. He's a 4-time major winner. You cannot discount that history. If he's relatively fit, and I'm sure he is, I'm sure he's been practicing hard this week so far, I think he is a potential winner. And as I say, I think he's a really dangerous figure. If you're looking at a leaderboard and you see Koepka on there, he's one of those players where you look at him, you think, he's going to stay there. He's not one of those guys that's going to fold. And I think that makes him a really, really interesting potential champion down Magnolia Lane this week.
And Fred, not only that, other players see him near them at the top of the leaderboard, they fold. That's one of the things that Brooks Koepka has on the other players. He will not fold. He likes it. Like Kieran was mentioning, he thrives on the big stage. He thrives in proving people wrong. So Brooks, I'm not against you. So Fred, how about Brooks Koepka?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Augusta National is really, really killing. Okay, so if you have knee surgery less than 3 weeks ago, just walking 18 holes without trying to swing a golf club on a side hill lie is a difficult task. I want to tell you, people don't realize how hilly and how steep it is. It's a hard walk. Doing that, maybe he can go out and play 4 holes, okay, and play a little funsy game, but going out and doing that for 4 days, let alone hitting balls and practicing and all the stuff else that they have to do, I just don't see it happening. If he can do it, more power to him. It's fantastic. But if Brooks Koepka makes a cut and finishes in the top 25, I will be absolutely surprised.
Oh, Fred, you're now on his list. You're now on the hit list for Brooks. That'll be you being targeted.
Yeah.
It'll be you. It's you and Brandel Chambly. That's it.
Yeah. I like Brandel. I'm good with that.
He's a very good hair, so I've got to give him that.
Exactly. I do too on the front. It's the back that's bad.
let me text Brooks. It was Fred who said that.
It's not me. It's not me. I'm behind you, Brooks.
It's not Kieran or me, Brooks. It was Fred. All right. Last storyline to talk before we get into the nitty gritty of it. Bryson DeChambeau. Augusta National hasn't been too kind to him over the years. His best finish so far is T21 when he came back in 2016 when he was still an amateur. His attempt to overpower the place in November, everybody was saying he's going to break this thing. Didn't go as planned in November. Finished T34, and that is with the course setting up just for him. He picked up another win since last November and gained even more experience with a 3-3 at the Players. Maybe this could be the year he figures out Augusta National. You have to assume that he's due to have a good week here sooner rather than later, right? And given his form, this could be that week. Maybe we'll see fewer drivers this week compared to years past. I don't know about that, but anyway, maybe, he's the reigning U.S. Open champ. He goes full send and brings his Winged Foot game plan to town. So, Fred, how about Bryson DeChambeau? Will this be his week? Will he break Augusta National like everybody's saying?
No. He may play very well. I mean, it's time for him. He's been playing pretty well in big events. I mean, if he could do what he did, in the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, he can pretty much play anywhere. He's won, as I've said before, he's won at Muirfield Village. He can win anywhere. So he could win a Masters, and I can't put anything, against him. What he does works for him. I don't know that it works for anybody else, but it works for him. So he seems to every once in a while get a little bit out of sync. And when he's swinging at the swing speed that he is, just a 3 or 4% change in his swing speed can make a huge difference on if that ball's going left or right 30 or 40 yards. So we've seen him hit some balls that just go completely off the planet. And he has more room at Augusta National. That's very clear. The fairways are wider. There's really no rough there to speak of. But you've got to be on your iron game. You've got to be hitting those irons into the right spots on the greens, or you're going to be looking at 3 putts or 4 putts all day long. So that's the key. Maybe he can get the drive out there and get it someplace where he wants it. But can he hit the irons into where he wants them so then he can putt? And he's proven he's a pretty good putter. I mean, you don't win these big events like he's winning without being a good putter. Everybody talks about his length, but he putts pretty good. So to me, it's not so much about the length. It's whether, even if he's hitting a short iron, a wedge or something, is he getting it into the right spots on the greens? That will be the tell.
Does he have the creativity to master the Masters here in Augusta National? That might be the question, Kieran. How about Bryson DeChambeau and his chances to break Augusta National?
Well, I like the way you phrased that there, Carlos. And I think there could be a clash in styles between Augusta National and Bryson DeChambeau. And he did embarrass himself a bit in November. That's certainly clear. And I do think he will crack it eventually, and I think he will play better this week, and I think he will finish better than 21st, which, as you say, he did back when he was the low amateur. But I still think Augusta presents some questions that he hasn't quite found the answer to. And it's Augusta National has changed through the years, and it's not the golf course it was even 20 years ago or 30, 40 years ago. But it's still an artistic golf course. The artists thrive there. The Seve Ballesteros, the Phil Mickelsons, the Tiger Woods, the creative players, Jose Maria Olafable, the guys that can shape the ball and have imagination around the greens, the guys who just see things a little bit differently. They tend to thrive here and always have done. You can even put Jordan Spieth into that bracket as well. He's another one of those kind of players. Whereas Bryson is a scientific player. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but there could be that clash in style. So I think Bryson will have his best finish in the Masters this year, but I don't think he's going to win.
The question will be whether he is willing to let go of trying to overpower Augusta. Will he just let the driver in his bag enough to try to make the shots that he has to make? We'll talk a little bit about him and the other players when we pick our winners. But right now it's time to talk about the course. Kieran, Augusta National is a course like the tradition like no other. Augusta National, you can say that every course or every 3 or 4 holes is a section that you have to attack differently. You have to be creative. You have to really make sure that you can shape the ball. Think like nobody else. What does it? Who does it suit to? And what would be the strategy to follow to attack Augusta National?
Well, I think a lot of it will depend on the conditions. And, Fred touched on the weather forecast for later in the week. So the weather there now is perfect. It's going to be perfect all practice days. The players have spoken about how the golf course is firm and fast. Now, the question is the golf course firm and fast in comparison to November, which of course it will be, or are they comparing it to previous years? So I think it will be firmer and faster. So some of the players have spoken about having a defensive style. Patrick Cantley played a practice round on Monday with Fred Couples. Obviously great experience there, and it opened his eyes up to just playing a little bit more defensive over certain shots. Jason Day has spoken about that too. Don't be aggressive all the time because the golf course will catch you out, and that's that magic of Augusta National, which has changed so much through the years. It's not the golf course that Alistair McKenzie or Bobby Jones outlined back in the 1930s. It's evolved through time, not always for the better. I think it's fair to say it has become narrower and tighter and longer, and in some places more one-dimensional. I mean, the 7th hole, for example, is probably fairly ridiculous to be the length that it is, given the style of green that it has. And some of the par 5s are a little bit compromised as well these days. But I think the strategy of it is, again, it's finding the right part of the fairway to get the right roll on the fairways, as Fred touched on. It's a very undulating golf course, very hilly. And if it is to play firmer, that will depend a lot on the weather forecast. There's thunderstorms forecast on Friday, potentially rain on Saturday as well. But obviously that can change as the week progresses. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully not. I think it will be a much better event if we have the sunshine and the firmer conditions. So again, I come back to iron play. The guys who can hit the ball high, change the trajectory, find the right part of the greens. It's not always, the players talk about missing in the right place, and that probably counts for more here than any other golf course that the guys play regularly. Because I mean, you're not going to hit every single green. You're not going to find every single part of the right green or the right part of the green. You have to make your up and downs and take your medicine. And I think that's why experience counts for a lot at Augusta. And certain players, I think, thrive in that environment. So you talk about length or etc. I think length is obviously a major asset to anybody on any golf course, but it's not everything. Strong iron play has always been the asset here more than anything else, and obviously a touch around the greens. And the thing is, we say long hitters, so Bryson DeChambeau or Justin Thomas or Rory McIlroy, but they're all kind of long hitters now. Even the guys that we don't call long hitters, they still hit the ball 290 through the air routinely. So, I mean, the likes of Jordan Spieth, he's not one of the long hitters, but he's long. That's still pretty long. So all these guys are long nowadays. So, yeah, I think a lot will depend on the conditions, Carlos, how the weather progresses through the week. But yeah, we come back to the iron play, the experience that counts for a lot around here. So different kinds of players have won at Augusta through the years. But yeah, so I look at the guys I've spoken about before, the more artistic type players, the guys who can see shots both from the fairway and around the greens. It's very much a second shot golf course. So the irons are the key to unlocking Augusta National. And I think ultimately the winner this week will be near the top of the approach stats. Now, that's been the case really since they've been recorded, certainly in the past 10 to 15 years, as the guy who wins is routinely in the top 5 in terms of iron play. And I think that will be the key asset when identifying a potential winner on Sunday.
Right. You mentioned, and Kieran talked about it also, there's thunderstorms, there's rain forecast for the whole 4 days. Last November, we were talking about the cold weather impacting how length would be affected. It didn't really affect length, but rain is a different monster. So how do you see the players approaching here, and who is going to be best set up this weekend?
Well, if it's going to be wet and slow, length is going to be a factor. Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Rory, even now Jordan was busting at 320, right, in Valero, so in Texas. So he's got the length, obviously. I think back to last year when Bernhard Langer was doing so well, But I think back to number 5 where he hit a driver. I think he hit drive like 265 or 270, and he was trying to hit a wood into the green and couldn't get there. He was coming up 5 to 10 yards short of the green, hitting like a 3-wood or a 5-wood or something with his second shot. So and especially if it becomes wet, it is a long golf course, especially if you're going uphill, because they are steep. There's a lot of elevation there. So length is going to be an issue if it's going to be wet. And from what I've read, it's going to be raining. Kieran talked about, and I talked about it earlier, about iron play, shots, strokes gained with iron play from the fairways. That's where it's at this week. And who's better than that than Jordan Spieth hitting those irons? And you made a point too, Carlos, when we were talking about Bryson. Does he have the imagination? Well, Spieth has the imagination around the greens. Just look back to Texas last week. I mean, he put on a clinic, a short game clinic. We talked about Seve. That was his strength, chipping around the greens. That's what it takes at Augusta, because you're not going to always put it right where you want it. So I don't know. It's a strategy golf course. Yeah, you can bomb it away from the tees most of the time. Kieran mentioned the fact that maybe some of the par 5s have become outdated, or maybe, I don't know, but 13 and 15 are both gettable. That's what adds excitement. You can make eagle, you can make double, because there is trouble there if you're off a little bit. So they're exciting holes just the way they are. I think they've even gotten better with time, actually, because I remember back in the past, in the 70s, I don't think, I'll bet half the players didn't go for the green in 2 at 15. The water was too intimidating, and they were coming in with such a long club that even if they hit the green, it would bounce over the back and go in the pond on 16. So today they're hitting it so much higher and longer with irons that they can go into like 15. But I think that adds the excitement. I think it really makes it cool. So there's a lot there. The course gives us so much. We know all the holes. Everybody just, when we watch guys tee up, if they're near the lead on number 12 on Sunday, everybody holds their breath while the ball's in the air, right? You're trying, does it have enough to clear the bank? Because if it's not up on that green, it's rolling back down in the water. That's just the cool thing about Augusta. And when you stand up like on the 10th tee, it's so high up there at the clubhouse, and it goes straight downhill on 10 and straight downhill to 11. And you get down to the bottom of the golf course there at 12. And it's just a total different feel in 3 holes, 10, 11, well, 2 holes, 10, 11 to 12. It's so much different. It demands so much of the players. Then if there's any wind at all swirling around down those trees, that shot on 12T just becomes terrifying for these guys, because they know a ball in the water, it's going to be a bogey at maybe at best, and probably looking at double. So it's really a good golf course. I think it stood the test of time. They keep tinkering, they keep adding length to it here and there. And I come back every year, I talk about it. Hole number 3 might be my favorite hole on the golf course. It's just a short par 4, but you can watch, everybody plays it a little bit differently. It's so cool to stand there and watch these guys try to figure out what to do there, especially when that pin is up on the very top tier. There's 3 tiers, left to middle to high on the right side. And if it's up there on the top, I mean, unless you're coming in from below that green up there with a wedge, you can't get it close. There's no way in the world. So there's so much there at that golf course. It's just so much fun to watch. I love to watch them hit on every tee, whatever they're showing. And when they're on 12, I'm starting to hold my breath as they're starting to downswing.
Definitely. I mean, every hole you have to approach it differently. You have to have a strategy. You're not only playing against the players, your opponents, you're also playing against the golf course. So you had to have your strategy. You go to war against it, which means you have to, it's usually somebody that has known about the Masters and about Augusta National that comes out as a winner. So that brings us to the amateurs, right? Bobby Jones, one of the co-founders, is the ultimate amateur player of all time, right? He and Clifford Roberts were the founders of Augusta National, and usually we see at least five amateurs in the field, but this year with multiple amateur championships canceled, only the U.S. Amateur and British Amateur are sending representatives to the 85th edition of the Masters here. So Joe Long from the British Amateur, Trice Tafasi, and Charles Osborne from the U.S. Amateur are the your three Masters participants, amateur participants this time around. And I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to talk about them and their chances, but I'm going to be candid about this. None of the three has a real shot at the weekend contention. Not unlike Victor Hovland in 2019 or Bryson DeChambeau in 2016. But what are your thoughts, Fred, about this?
Yeah, well, it's great that they still have some amateurs in there. Tyler Strafacci, a great player, playing very well for sure. I really don't know much about Joe Long or Charlie Osborne, but I'll agree with you, Carlos. Neither one has a chance, but it's always great to see the amateurs in there, doing their thing, and it's a great experience for them.
Kieran, what's your thought on Joe Long, specifically the British Amateur champion and the two U.S. Amateur players?
Yeah, well, I'll comment on Joe Long specifically, and he won at Royal Birkdale last year. He's from the Bristol area in the southwest of England. He plays at a golf club called Lansdowne, which is near the city of Bath. And the city of Bath was named due to the Roman era bathhouses that were in the city, that were built there, almost 2,000 years ago during the lengthy Roman occupation of Britain back in the day. And that's a useless bit of information that I've just told you there, but that's what I bring to this show, is lots of useless information, and that's one of them there. But no, he's a very good player, has a bit of swagger about him. He'll play in the Walker Cup as well very soon in May. He actually was almost injured recently while surfing, believe it or not, in South Africa. But unfortunately, this week, his friend who was supposed to caddy for him, he tested positive for COVID. So he'll have to use one of the Augusta National caddies instead. And you know what? That could be very helpful. So I think Joe Long could be the wild card with a Augusta National caddy by his side. He might be the low amateur, but like you, Carlos, I think it's going to be a stretch to imagine one of them making the cut, but you never know. I think the cut line's a bit different now. It used to be 10 shots. They removed that out of it last year. So I think it's harder now for guys to make the cut, but you never know. That's the one thing about the Masters. Everyone talks about how great the leaderboard is, but there's a really good reason for that all the time. It's basically because the field's so artificially low. Essentially, it consists of the best players in the world, the elite, and then people who have absolutely no chance, i.e. the amateurs and some of the former champions. So that's why you always get a great leaderboard at the Masters. But yeah, Joe Long, if one of them is to be the low amateur, I'm going to stick my neck out and say I'll go for the British guy to take the low amateur honours.
What a homer.
So I'm going to go with Ty Strafashi. I mean, he's the reigning U.S. amateur champ. He won at Bandon Dunes, which is not an easy golf course. He enjoyed a nice career at Georgia Tech before he exited in his final semester earlier this year to go back to Florida. And he was the roommate of Andy Ogletree, who was the low amateur at the November Masters, where he finished T34 alongside Bryson DeChambeau and Adam Scott. So he might have some insight there from Andy as how to play in Augusta National. And Strafashi, I said, reigning U.S. amateur champ, will be playing alongside Dustin Johnson the first two rounds. So if he doesn't get too struck or maybe intimidated by DJ, he will be that low amateur. So now let's talk about the big time players. Okay, let's start talking about the international players. And Kieran, I have to start with you. Okay, I see three youngsters. I mean, we have almost teenagers there. The 40-agers. Sergio Garcia at 41, Lee Westwood at 47, Paul Casey at 43, coming playing really, really well. Lee Westwood that had those back-to-back runner-ups, it looked like he was about to burst and come on, man, I'm gonna be the world number one soon, but he came crashing down. But still, he's playing really well. Paul Casey too, Sergio Garcia. We know they all three play really well here. So how about the chances of those three and any other international players?
I think all three of them are probably quite good outside bets to contend. Lee Westwood has a fantastic record at Augusta. He plays well consistently here through the years, has come close to winning a couple of times. We lost to Mickelson, and then when he was involved in the Danny Willett, Jordan Spieth extravaganza of 5 years ago. But he's coming into this now in a different stage of his life and his career. He's enjoying the environment. He's enjoying competing. He's enjoying playing. He'll have his son Sam caddying for him this week. He's certainly the sentimental pick, and I think he'll play well this week. I think he'll do very well, and as he typically does here at Augusta, it's probably a stretch to imagine him winning at almost 48 years of age, but I think he'll enjoy his week, and I hope he does. And Paul Casey, likewise, very good record at Augusta, a lot of good rounds here through the years, but he played so well at the PGA Championship last year, and he was unlucky not to win that. Only Morikawa's brilliance denied him there at Harding Park. But Casey, I don't know if he has the 4 rounds in him to potentially win, but I think he will play solidly because he typically does here at Augusta. And Sergio is interesting, Carlos, because since winning the Masters 4 years ago in scintillating fashion in that playoff against Justin Rose and making the eagle on the 15th, he's had a terrible time of it at Augusta. He had that 13 on the 15th when he was defending champion, missed a cut there by a mile. He missed a cut again the following year. And then in November, he had to miss the event due to a positive COVID-19 test. So, Augusta hasn't been very nice to him since he won. Maybe it's getting its own back on them. But I think he's fit again. He's playing some very good stuff. I thought he played some wonderful stuff at the match play. Some incredible shots. And I think he'll have an enjoyable return visit for once. So I think he will have a very solid week. All three of those guys, I think, maybe not going to win, but I could see them, finishing in the top 20, maybe appearing on the leaderboard at some point as the 4 days progress. But in terms of the non-American players, Carlos, I love the omens. And I love John Rahm. And John Rahm, and of course, he and his wife, Kelly, they welcomed a baby boy at the weekend there, Kepa, who was born at the weekend. And that was obviously a potential uncertainty around Rahm this week, but baby came safely. Rahm's in the field. And we all know how good he is. He's got all the tools in the world. He's got the length. He's got the power. He's got the creativity. He's got the imagination. He's got the touch around the greens. He holds some outrageous putts at times. Sometimes the temperament's a bit fiery, but he has got it all. And you know what? And he's coming in here with a positive frame of mind. Maybe that will count for something. I mentioned Danny Willett. He won here 5 years ago. And just before that Masters, Danny Willett also became a father. So maybe there's a semblance there of a continuation. So I think John Rahm could be a potential winner. And what about Sung JM, who exceptional player, fantastic iron player, had a brilliant debut in November behind Dustin Johnson. And likewise, Cameron Smith, another player I really like, has got an edge to him, has got a good all-round game, a little bit more of a classic style player. I think both Sung JM and Cameron Smith will feel very confident this week. I think they'll do well too. So I think this event, for a long time, obviously it was the hotbed of Americans. Then the Europeans came in, and obviously Gary Player as well. And then they had Trevor Immelman and so on, and Charles Schwartzel. They began to sort of make it more cosmopolitan, international feel to the leaderboards, and obviously Sergio. And obviously the last few years, the Americans have begun to dominate again, and that will probably be the case again. But if not, then there's certainly a fair cast of potential winners here. John Rahm's top of the list, obviously, but Sung JM and Cameron Smith, they could be good outside bets.
Fred, how about the international field? How do you see it, especially Lee Westwood, Paul Casey, and Sergio Garcia? How is their form? Who you expect to be playing good here this year?
Yeah, Kieran mentioned Lee Westwood. I find him very intriguing. For some reason, I'm drawn to him this week. He is at the top of my list for the international or European players this week. He played so well just last month, and as Kieran mentioned, I mean, he's finished in the top 10 5 times at Augusta. So he's been runner up. He's been a third. I mean, this might be the time for him. I don't know. I for some reason, I really like Lee Westwood this week. Kieran didn't mention Tyrell Hatton, who's been playing, pretty well. Tommy Fleetwood. Not sure if Tommy's still got quite the game for Augusta, but he's pretty good iron player, so maybe. And one other guy that he's a young guy, but Victor Hovland. If he gets on a roll, he gets hot. Don't count him out. So, and I was telling you, I was very impressed with Victor Hovland at Victor Perez at the match play.
Yeah.
Could this be a place where Perez keeps doing what he was doing and really pops up to be a really new face, a guy that we've got to keep an eye on? You got Matt Fitzpatrick, you got Paul Casey. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of guys in there. Louis Oosthuizen hasn't been playing that well of late. Adam Scott, former winner. I had Cam Smith here too, Kieran. I like Cam Smith this week. Sun JM as well. So, there are some international players to keep an eye on, but I'm kind of like Kieran. I think an American's going to win it, but some of these guys do warrant keeping an eye on.
Definitely. Hey, we haven't talked about Shane Lowry, the Open champ, and it's maybe because these players, especially international players, are not coming in top form. Maybe other than John Ram, it's tough to pick up somebody. But I'm curious, Kieran, why didn't you pick a certain lefty or talked about him? He's been playing pretty well. I'm not saying he's gonna win. Well, how about that lefty that I know you know about him?
I would gladly talk about Robert McIntyre, absolutely. And it's fantastic that he's here making his debut at Augusta National this year. It's great to see some more Scottish players in the field. We have 3 of them this year. Obviously, Lyle's there. We have Martin Laird, and of course, we have Robert McIntyre. And I think McIntyre's a tremendous player. At the same time, I think it's a big leap to imagine him contending this week. But he's someone who I think could absolutely make the cut and have a very solid week. But he's certainly a player who's going in the right direction. And maybe he could be a Masters contender in 2 or 3 years from now. I see him on that trajectory. He comes back to, he's a bit of a throwback player to previous generations where he hits the ball a long way. He has all the shots. He's creative. He's imaginative. He grew up on a very small 9-hole course in the west of Scotland, and he's played all the shots and all the conditions. So he has that imagination, and he's fearless as well. He's a very determined competitor. So he'll turn up at Augusta National. Obviously, that's a very exciting moment for any golfer making their debut. He'll have a great week. I hope he plays all 4 rounds. I don't see him contending, but obviously if I see his name crop up in the first couple of pages on that leaderboard, then I'll be getting very interested. But certainly in the years to come, I think McIntyre's a name to look out for, and I think he showed a lot of people how good he can be when, of course, he stared down Dustin Johnson at the match play. He was so terrific that week, and that'll give him a lot of confidence coming to a big stage, playing with major champions on the most iconic golf course that we see every year. So yeah, McIntyre's a name to look out for. Maybe not this week, but certainly in years to come.
Yeah, some players.
See him drive it up Dustin Johnson's feet on 18 at the match play.
Well, I mean, the thing about that was the fact that we didn't actually see the shot is outrageous. I mean, in this day and age, how can the guy hit a shot that good and you don't get to see it from the tee?
We saw it roll up on the green.
I know, but that doesn't count.
That was great.
It was great, but I want to see him hit the shot. I mean, I thought it was incredible. It reminded me of the famous shot that everyone talks about that Seve Ballesteros hit at the 1983 Ryder Cup at PGA National from the bunker on the 18th hole, which everybody who was there that day says is the best shot that anyone has ever hit. Jack Nicklaus said that. I think he was playing against Fuzzy Zeller. He said that as well. The best shot ever. No TV coverage of it. We've never seen it. It's legendary, and McIntyre's drive in Texas is probably in Austin. Is probably at that level. But
nobody's seen.
One of the best shots that nobody's ever seen.
Hey, just to close it out, there's three players that haven't been mentioned. Jason Day, you cannot count him out. I mean, he's a player that if he comes and he's feeling well, he has the game to contend here. Matthew Fitzpatrick, we have not mentioned him. He's another player, very good player that could contend here. Another young player that we haven't mentioned, and he's international because he's not from the States, but it's Corey Connors. He's been playing really, really well. It's like we're talking about him at the top of the leaderboards, top 10 or top 20. Corey Connors, I'm not picking him to win, but watch out. He's really playing well. So any other final thoughts on international players before we go?
I think it was T9 in November, I think, something like that.
Yep.
So watch out. Corey Connors, hey, he could be, I'm going to hold it for the long shots. But anyway, let's go with our picks. That's what everybody's been waiting for. So we already talked about our top amateur, Ty Strafesci.
Joe Long.
Who are you going with? Fred?
Joe Long.
Am I first?
Well, we already said ours.
There's only three guys to choose from. It's three guys to choose from.
You can pick the other one.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're amateur. I'm ready to do my pick for the whole thing, man.
No. Wait to the end for that.
I'm past the amateurs. You guys can pick the amateurs.
Come on, just pick one. It's only
Tyler.
3. You have a 33% of picking who's going to be the top amateur.
I'll go with you, Strafacci.
All right, so Strafacci versus Long. All right.
So Osborne has no chance then.
Not a chance. Ollie. His name's Ollie. Not a chance.
All right. Kieran, who's your top international picks? Pick 3 of them.
Oh, 3 of them. Well, actually,
let's give you 5. Come on, let's give you 5. Well, because we know that Fred is going to pick 10.
No.
So I'll give you 5.
Okay. Well,
5 internationals.
Okay. I'll take 1 international player, 1 continental European player, and 1 player from the UK. There you go. I'll do that.
Ooh.
So my top international player, i.e. could play in the President's Cup, is Sung JM. I mentioned him earlier. He's my pick there. My top continental European is the new daddy, John Ram, and he might very well be the daddy at Augusta National on Sunday too. And my top UK and Ireland player, I'm going to say it, Rory McIlroy. He might just defy all expectations. You never know. Look, if Rory was to win the Masters and I hadn't tipped him to play well, I would never be able to redeem myself. So I'm going to say Rory McIlroy will be the top UK and Ireland player. But to be more specific, I think Lee Westwood will be the top Englishman this week.
All right. Fred, how about you?
For European or international, I got Lee Westwood written down here. I talked about him earlier. For some reason, he just keeps popping up in my consciousness. I think he's good. And I like to see, I think Victor Hovland could have a good week. He's kind of fallen back a little bit of late. He's played okay, but not quite the level he was playing. So I want to see him play a little bit better this week. And if I got to pick one other one, Rahm's probably the obvious choice, or Rory's probably the obvious choice. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with Cam Smith for my other guy.
All right, that's good. So I'm going to go international. I'm going to try to go with the way that Kieran was. I got it. No, I can't do it that way because I don't have it specifically that. I think John Ram is my
Sergio, right?
Ram is my special my top international. I got to go with Sergio. I think this is his redemption year for him, and Jason Day. Those are my 3 internationals to go there. So John Ram, Sergio, and Jason Day. Now, Fred, I'm going to go with you first.
Ohio.
They're from Spain and then Australia. Okay, come on.
They're always picking him.
But here's the thing, Carlos. When was Jason Day last in Australia? Has he ever been? I mean, has he been there for 20 years? I don't know.
That's why he plays for. Okay,
I know. I'm
that's
just
the
saying.
flag. It says Australia.
I know.
So, get it. That's to my advantage. Okay.
He's adopted Buckeye. We've got him now.
Fred, top long shots.
I mentioned Victor Hovland earlier, but I've got Scotty Scheffler. We haven't talked about Scotty Scheffler at all. And I like Scotty Scheffler on this golf course. He's been playing really, really well. So I think he could be up there in the top 20 or top 15 by the end of the week. And we haven't talked about Matt Wolff. If the golf course is soft, his head's been a little bit messed up lately, but if he could get back on his game. So, but my long shot is Scotty Scheffler.
So those three. How about you, Kieran? Give me your top long shots.
Well, I mean, in terms of long shots, there aren't too many in the Masters unless you're going to get ridiculous and start picking your Larry Mize to win again. But obviously, out players who are not ranked in the top 20 as being, these are long shots. They're obviously very capable of winning. I could have picked Jordan Spieth in that regard, but no, I won't. He is one of the true favourites. But I like Scotty Scheffler, like Fred does. We mentioned Corey Connors. I think Corey Connors is someone who I think could easily come here and play well. Not sure either of them are going to win, but they could certainly finish in the top 8, I would say. Have a very good week. Again, two players that could contend in the years to come. And in terms of long shots, I would say those two certainly stand out. And you could even argue Sergio Garcia. I mean, he's just in the world's top 50. He's probably considered a long shot with the bookmakers. So I would say Sergio, Connors, and Scheffler as long shot players, but it's hard to find too many genuine long shots. I mean, there's not too many players in this field you look at and say, "Oh, they've got no chance of winning." It's a very competitive field. It's a very elite field, as we all know. It's not like an Open Championship or a US Open where some real outlier players can contend. You don't really get that here at Augusta. The cream tends to rise to the top because ultimately that's pretty much all who is actually there. So I do think one of the favourites will win this week. But if it's not to be a favourite and one guy's to come in and maybe surprise somebody, then it could be Connors or Scheffler.
Okay, so those are two of my three long shots that I was going to pick. So I think we're all in agreement that they should be there on the top. And the third one, I know it's a surprise to all of you. I know it's out of left field. I mean, this is out of the clouds coming to all of you. Hideki Matsuyama. That's my third.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
No, you didn't. No, you
I did.
didn't.
I did.
I never picked Hideki Matsuyama before at the Masters. So
is no one picking Phil to win this week? No one picking Phil? No.
Is he playing?
I thought he was on the Champions Tour.
Phil, could Phil be the top senior? He might even lose that title. Actually, here's the thing for you. I'm going to stick my neck out and say the top 50+ player this week. It's not going to be Phil. It's not even going to be Bernhard. It's going to be Mike Weir. There you go.
No, Mike cannot hit it. He cannot hit it far enough. No way.
No, but he made the cut in November, and that was in the soft conditions.
There's no way.
And Mickelson's too erratic, and Langer's
Mike's shorter than Bernhard Langer yet.
Yeah. Just wait and see.
Okay.
All right, we'll see. Bernhard should be the oldest guy the top older one. But anyway, Kieran, now this is the time. The picks to win. Who are your favorites?
Do I have to put them in an order of preference, or what do I do here? Alphabetically?
Yeah, it has to be because we're sticking our necks out. We're telling everyone this is.
Shall I go from 5 to 1?
5 to 1. Go ahead.
5 to 1. Okay, my number 5 on my list is Jordan Spieth. He's right up there as a potential winner. He's back in form. He loves this golf course. It would be a wonderful story. It would complete his comeback season.
Wild.
And the crowd would love it. I mean, look, in terms of a story, it's hard to beat Jordan Spieth. So I would love to see it happen. It might very well. So Jordan Spieth makes my top 5. My 4th pick is the guy that Fred says has no chance because he can't walk more than 5 feet, apparently. And that's Brooks Koepka. Now, Brooks Koepka is a machine. He's a major player. He's a major champion. He's someone who loves the big time, and he loves proving people wrong, especially old gray-haired guys like Brandel Chambly and Fred Altvater. He loves proving these guys wrong. And Koepka's a very dangerous player this week. If he turns up and plays well, he's not going to be afraid to be on that leaderboard. He's not going to wilt under pressure. And, Koepka for me is the wild card figure. So he's in my top 5. In 3rd place on my list, mentioned him several times already, Got to go with John Ram, the new dad. I like the vibes. I like the positivity. I love his game. It's about time he won a major because he's so good. Has all the tools, all the ingredients, and we all know the great history of Spanish golfers at Augusta National, going back to Seve in 1980 and Jose Maria Olazabal and Sergio. It's about time a new Spaniard was in part of that club, and John Ram is a potential winner. One guy who, of course, has also won the Masters and is indeed the reigning champion is Dustin Johnson. He's number 2 in my list. Dustin Johnson's only had the green jacket in his possession for 5 months. Seems a bit harsh. We're going to take it off. We're not taking it off of him, but he has to give it to somebody else or give a new one to somebody else so soon. Compare it to Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry's been the champion golfer of 2 years, which is quite impressive. Dustin Johnson's been the Masters champion for 5 months. You know what? I think he wants to extend that a little bit longer. And he's certainly capable of winning. No matter the conditions of the golf course is soft, it'll suit him perfectly. If it's firm and fast, he's DJ. He's world number 1. He can do anything. So I think Dustin Johnson is if you finish ahead of him, you're probably going to be the Masters champion. He's going to be right up there this weekend, I feel. And the man who I'm tipping, Carlos, to tip and to beat Dustin Johnson and all the rest to be the Masters champion on Sunday is Justin Thomas. I believe I picked him to win last year. Didn't quite happen. But again, I think his iron play is superb. The confidence he has from Sawgrass is superb. And he's someone who, you mentioned the stats in terms of his 6th appearance and a little bit of experience behind him coming into this week. I think that all plays a part in it. He's primed and ready to win his 2nd major championship after the PGA 4 years ago. And I think he'd be a popular winner among his peers. And I think he would be a very fitting Masters champion. And I can see it happening because, great players win at Sawgrass and they win at Augusta National, whether you're Phil Mickelson or Tiger Woods or Adam Scott or Sergio Garcia, or of course, Sandy Lyle, who of course won the Players Championship and the Masters tournament. And I'm going to end my week, my Masters preview on Sandy.
All right, Fred, what are your top picks?
In no particular order.
No.
Couple guys. Oh, you want
Has
to go
to be in
5?
order. 5 to 1.
5 to 1. 5 to 1.
Okay. Well, a couple guys we haven't talked about that I think are real potential winners. My guy, Colin Morikawa, right? He's a major champion. I like him right there. Right above him, I'll take Xander Schauffele. Big events, he loves them. He's got the game for it. Don't count those 2 guys out. Next one up, I'm going to go with JT. I like JT in there. I think this could be his time to win a Masters. Right above him, I'm like Kieran. I got DJ in the number 2 slot, but my guy this week, I think he just keeps riding the wave. Jordan Spieth.
Oh, so since I mentioned 3 months ago that Jordan was going to win the Masters, it's no secret that that's my number 1. So I'm going to go from 5 to 4 to 2. On number 5, I know it's going to be a shocker to everyone, but you will see he's a former 2-time Master champs. And I mentioned about one of his wild shots, that hook that he did in 2012, Bubba Watson. I think he's playing really well, and this is a course that he has the creativity. When we talk about creativity, that's the guy. He has the length, and he knows how to play here. He loves playing in Augusta, so I'm gonna pick him at number 5. My number 4 is going to be John Ram. That's my number 4. I think he's playing well enough, and now that he has the relief that he's a dad finally, he's not worrying about that. He's finally a dad. Like Kieran said, he could be the daddy of the Masters this weekend. Number 3, and I'm not going against him. I gotta pick him here. The only reason why I don't pick him higher is because maybe he's not enough in shape. But Brooks Koepka, I cannot rule him out. I mean, Tiger won in one leg at US Open. He can win in one leg here in Augusta just by will only. So that's why I'm going with him, number 3. Number 2 is JT. I think him and Jordan will be in that final grouping on Sunday, and that'll be fireworks going on all the way. So that is our picks. Now we're going to go to our closing thoughts. So Kieran, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We look back at the past year, obviously, an extraordinary year, one we'll never forget. And the Masters was one of the first casualties of the schedule last spring. And of course, we had the rescheduled Masters in November, which obviously delivered a great champion, and it was good to watch. But it didn't feel like a Masters. Didn't have the atmosphere. Didn't have the same visuals. This time we're having a more conventional tournament. We have a spring conditions, spring. We have obviously we have the patrons are back in relative numbers, so we'll have some sense of an atmosphere. It will feel more like a normal Masters tournament, and hopefully the weather isn't as bad as forecast, and we get the leaderboard that we all think we're going to get. And if we mentioned all of our top fives there, Carlos, and if we get those top five players in that mix on Sunday, then we're going to have a Masters to remember. I mean, every year the event delivers consistently drama, excitement because of the restricted field and because of the golf course too. Fred touched on it earlier in terms of the water holes, the danger that's there. We all know it's coming, but also the chance for brilliance and magic as well. And the fact that we know the holes so well, we can remember the champions, we can remember the shots, the good and the bad shots. All of that enhances the viewing experience. And that's what makes the Masters almost like a perfect made-for-TV golf tournament. And the Augusta National, in many senses, is also the perfect made-for-TV golf course. And I think that once again deliver something very interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out this week.
All right, Fred, final words.
Yeah, just a quick thing about the history. We talk about so much about the Masters, but Augusta National Masters was not always like that. The place opened up in 1933, right in the middle of the Great Depression, right? So there just wasn't any money. And, Jones is from a affluent family, but he couldn't do this on his own. And so during the tournament, the members were going up and down the shops in downtown Augusta asking for a few bucks to help keep the tournament going and all that kind of thing. During World War II, the course was completely closed down and used as a pasture for cattle to provide meat for the war efforts. So the clubs really struggled for about 30 years to make it, but through the efforts of Clifford Roberts, he kept it financially going, was able to hang it in there, and now it's become one of the toughest tickets in sports. It's something we look forward to every spring, and it's the best major tournament that there is. So it wasn't always this way. It's come a long ways. Augusta National's done it right, and it's one of a kind. It's fantastic.
And Carlos, just quickly before I say anything, it's finally, it will also be great to see Lee Elder on the first tee on Thursday as one of the honorary starters. I think that's
one of the new traditions. Yep.
Something that should have happened a few years ago. I think it was called for back then. Better late than never, and he deserves that honor. And I hope he has a magical time doing it. And I think it's obviously Augusta National has a questionable history in many respects. We can't change the past, but we can recognize it and also reflect the future. And I think that's a small step in hopefully doing that.
Always looking forward to the things that the Masters have. They're always being at the forefront also in innovation and technology. So the Masters is the tournament, the most prestigious tournament in golf. And with that, we wrap up our massive wall-to-wall preview. Thank you, Kieran, for being part of this again. I mean,
pleasure as always.
Have an incredible time with you, Fred. Kieran, looking forward to a great tournament. So enjoy. Thank you for listening to us.